now address the topic that is on everybody's mind, AI. Last week, you said that generative AI and accelerated computing have hit the tipping point. So as this technology becomes more mainstream, what are the applications that you personally are most excited about?
Well, you have to go back to first principles and ask yourself, what is generative AI? What happened? What happened was we now have the ability to have software that can understand something. They can understand why, what is, first of all, we digitized everything. That was, like, for example, gene sequencing. You digitize genes. But what does it mean? That sequence of genes, what does it mean? We've digitized amino acids. But what does it mean? And so we now have the ability, we digitize words, we digitize sounds, we digitize images, videos, we digitize a lot of things. But what does it mean? We now have the ability to, through a lot of studying, a lot of data and from the patterns and relationships, we now understand what they mean. Not only do we understand what they mean, we can translate between them. Because we learned about the meaning of these things in the same world. We didn't learn about them separately. So we learned about speech and words and paragraphs and vocabulary in the same context. And so we found correlations between them, and they're all registered, if you will, registered to each other. And so now we not only do we understand the modality, the meaning of each modality, we can understand how to translate between them. And so for obvious things, you could caption video to text, that's captioning, text to images, Midjourney, text to text, ChatGPT, amazing things. And so we now know that we understand meaning and we can translate. The translation of something is generation of information, and all of a sudden you have to take a step back and ask yourself, what is the implication in every single layer of everything that we do? And so I'm exercising in front of you, I'm reasoning in front of you, the same thing I did 15 years ago when I first saw AlexNet, some 13, 14 years ago, I guess, how I reasoned through it. What did I see? How interesting? What can it do? Very cool. But then most importantly, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean to every single layer of computing? Because we're in the world of computing. And so what it means is that the way that we process information fundamentally will be different in the future. That's what NVIDIA builds, chips and systems. The way we write software will be fundamentally different in the future. The type of software we'll be able to write in the future will be different, new applications. And then also the processing of those applications will be different. What was historically a retrieval-based model where information was pre-recorded, if you will, almost. We wrote the text, pre-recorded, and we retrieved it based on some recommender system algorithm. In the future, some seed of information will be the starting point. We call them prompts, as you guys know. And then we generate the rest of it. And so the future of computing will be highly generated. Well, let me give you an example of what's happening. For example, we're having a conversation right now. Very little of the information I'm conveying to you is retrieved. Most of it is generated. It's called intelligence. And so in the future, we're going to have a lot more generative. Our computers will perform in that way. It's going to be highly generative instead of highly retrieval based. Then you go back and you got to ask yourself, now for entrepreneurs, you got to ask yourself, what industries will be disrupted therefore? Will we think about networking the same way? Will we think about storage the same way? Would we be as abusive of internet traffic as we are today? Probably not. Notice we're having a conversation right now, and I don't have to get in my car every question. So we don't have to be as abusive of transformation, information transporting as we used to. What's going to be more? What's going to be less? What kind of applications? Et cetera, et cetera. So you can go through the entire industrial spread and ask yourself what's going to get disrupted, what's going to be different, what's going to get nude, so on and so forth. And that reasoning starts from what is happening. What is generative AI? Foundationally, what is happening? Go back to first principles with all things. There was something I was going to tell you about organization. You asked